Today I'm going to share 3 tips with you that'll help make you a better college student. I want to preface this by saying I know that a lot of people like to go to college and they want to have a really good time, and I'm not saying that that's not part of the college experience. But of course, we all know that college is a means to an end, that it's supposed to get us somewhere, that it's supposed to propel us into our career, our everyday lives. And so that's kind of where this list comes from. This list isn't about let's go have a good time, let's go party, let's get involved with this and this. This is strictly classroom related based on my personal experience as a professor and as a college student myself. I'll have you know that I actually compiled this list when I was a college student myself, actually about to graduate with my bachelor's degree. Maybe I'll tell you that story some other time. But the number one, the first of my 3 keys to success is to show up whenever possible. The key here, I know it sounds like common sense, but the key here is actually the whenever possible. That actually that's my challenge to my students, whenever possible. So I know we have our mornings, and you will have your mornings where you just don't feel like getting up. Maybe you went and had fun the night before. Maybe you were up late studying for one class, and so you don't want to go to your morning class. Whatever it might be, you might wake up maybe not feeling very well. And your first instinct is naturally you just want to go back to sleep. You want to sleep it off. It takes a lot of effort to get up, get dressed, get ready, and head into the classroom and maybe sit through a lecture. I understand lectures probably aren't that exciting most of the time. So I understand that. So that's why I don't just say show up. I say show up whenever possible. My challenge is ask yourself first thing in the morning, is it possible to go to class today? Right? If you can answer yes to that question, no matter how you feel, of course, if you're like throwing up or something, you shouldn't go to class. But if you can answer yes, it is possible to go to class today, then my challenge is be there, no matter how you feel about it. If you feel lazy, tired, so on and so forth, be there in class. Part of this also is showing up on time. That's not to say if you're running late you shouldn't go to class, but don't make a habit of coming into class late. A lot of professors, they'll have attendance policies, and maybe you can't miss more than say 3 classes per semester without hurting your grade. That's a common policy that I've heard of. Some professors actually tally up your tardies, and maybe 2 or 3. If you're tardy 2 or 3 times, maybe they include that as an absence or something. It's a little silly. I'm not here to criticize. I'm just telling you how it is. Try to be on time. Okay. And another part of that is to participate in classroom activities. This doesn't always mean you have to be the person with your hand raised, always vocal in class, asking questions, contributing vocally to the conversation. When I say participate in class activities, I actually just mean being engaged with what's going on in class, listening to the professor. If the professor is writing on the board a lot and they turn around and they see a lot of students on their phones or nodding off, that's a quick way to really make your professor angry. And really, it's offensive. The professor has taken time to put together a lecture for you that probably took hours upon hours of work and research and outlining and that kind of thing before they were ready to present it to you. And it's just disrespectful. You're disrespecting their work. And honestly, you're probably disrespecting your education as well. I mean, you're there to learn, correct? And so participation just means being engaged, being attentive. Doesn't mean you always have to raise your hand. You can be quiet, you can be nervous. That's okay. A lot of people don't like to talk in public, and that's just fine. What I like to see when I'm giving a lecture or I'm writing on the board and I turn around, I like to see students eyes front. I like to see them thinking, whatever that might entail. Now, thinking back to when I was a college student, there was nothing worse than feeling lost in the classroom. There was nothing worse than being behind on my work. You feel like you're on an island. You're probably not right, but it definitely feels like the professor has his eyes on you, or the classmates might have their eyes on you, thinking there's that guy who is behind on the work and hasn't been attending class. That's why I say number two, my second key to success. It sounds simple. Do the work, do the reading. Okay. Now the work is one thing. I get that. You know that you have to do the work and turn in the work in order to receive a passing grade. Um, I'm throwing reading in there because I teach a lot of research-based classes in which reading is absolutely necessary to a student's success. No matter what class you might be in, whether I teach English, literature, composition, it might be history, there's obviously exceptions, but whatever class involves work and reading or work based on the reading, you have to do the reading. And I get it. Reading, maybe from a textbook or even reading like certain articles, doing research, it can be very time consuming and very boring. I understand that. I've been through it myself. And I'm going to say I teach composition papers. I didn't really like writing papers or researching them myself. It's very, very time consuming. I would have rather been watching TV or playing a video game myself. All right. But you have to do the reading. Okay. I can't hammer this home enough. And here's another thing about reading, and I'll probably go into depth about this in a later video as well. But how do you read? How many times have you maybe you go back at night, you open your textbook, you have 25 pages of reading, and you're thinking, I'm doing my reading, I'm being a good student, and you find yourself suddenly on page 8 or 9, and it hits you, and you realize that you don't remember a single thing that you read for those 7 or 8 pages, that it basically went in your eye and out your ear, right? This is me kind of talking about what I need to do and make sure that I do, and other professors that in which reading is a big part of the class, is to make sure we're teaching students how to read effectively and how to retain information. All right. Now, real quick, part of that is taking notes while you read, highlighting, they call it annotating the pages. Whatever it is that you have to do to apply multiple learning processes, not just the reading, but maybe the writing. And if you're writing about the reading, then you're actually actively thinking and engaging with that reading. Okay, and I'll probably go into depth more later on about that. But for now, number two, do the work, do the reading. All right, part of this is don't fall behind. And if you do, that's okay. It's probably going to happen. Most college students at some point, the work is overwhelming, right? You're trying to basically balance your learning and your classroom expectations with a social life, with just having alone time, extracurricular activities, right? And so there's a lot on your plate right now. Maybe you're trying to carry a part-time job, maybe even a full-time job, depending on who you are. Maybe you're an athlete and you have a lot of expectations and you have a lot of practice. And you're involved with the team a lot. There's a lot of things that college students have on their plate, right? But first and foremost is the work and the reading. If you find yourself falling behind, don't panic. Get caught up, or I don't really recommend this. Sometimes you have to take those small little 5-point assignments and maybe decide to kind of skip one, right? If it means getting a paper in on time or a bigger assignment, doing a test, whatever it might be. Try really hard not to fall behind, though. Very few students like to do this, and in fact, very few professors like to do this, right? I mean, what are due dates for, correct? I will say that some undergraduate students can scrape by, kind of getting things done at the due date. I understand that. That's part of it too. And sometimes we do have to do that. But it's highly recommended. You'll actually save yourself a ton of stress if you get things done a little bit early. Most of the time, if you have foresight, if you kind of look at one class and compare it to another class and say, okay, I have a big exam in this class in 3 weeks, but I also have a big paper due in this class in 3 weeks. Now, I promise you, your professors aren't getting together and conspiring and twisting their mustaches and trying to figure out ways to make your life difficult. All right? But you as a college student, this is expected. Things are going to start weighing you down. Things are going to pile up. Your expectations, your assignments, it all piles up. If you can get something done early, it'll save you time and stress. If, for example, In that scenario, you have this class over here, you have a test, you have another class where a paper's due. Maybe you do your paper a little bit early, right? Maybe you knock that out so that you can spend time, sufficient amount of time studying for that exam that's coming up. Get it done early if possible. My third and final key to success as a college student, probably sounds pretty easy again, like the other two, but it is, I promise you, it's easier said than done, is to be willing to learn and improve. Uh, Learning is one thing. We all know that we're going to get in the classroom. We're supposed to anyway learn something from the professor and the course content. Uh, Hopefully, a skill that we can apply to our everyday lives or to other college classes or to our eventual careers in the future. But the difficult part is being willing to improve, because oftentimes what that means is that we have to admit that we have faults, that we have weaknesses. And so being willing to improve means kind of looking in the mirror and saying, "Man, I'm not a very efficient reader. I have a hard time retaining information. What can I do to improve my reading skills? Uh, I kind of suck at research. I don't feel comfortable typing keywords into a database. What can I do to improve my research skills so that I can better succeed in this class or in another class or in my future?" Right? Being willing to learn and improve. A natural human thing is to not want to admit or look in the mirror and be self-critical, right? And so that's a challenge that I throw down to my students. Truly be willing to improve. Admit your mistakes. Admit your flaws, your weaknesses as a student. Admit where you need the most help. And don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to admit it to yourself. Don't be afraid to admit it to some peers who could help you, other students, writing center, professors, uh, whomever. Okay? It's okay. We want to help you, right? Be willing to learn and improve. Part of that is to trust your instructors. Okay. Now, I get that trust, naturally, we've all heard it before, trust needs to be earned. But I think part of that, okay, part of my profession, I have credibility in the classroom. And I think students should naturally trust most, if not all, of their professors, even if you don't like them or don't like the class, even if that professor seems abrasive or short or disinterested, which unfortunately a lot of professors do act that way in the classroom. But trust us, okay? We are delivering the material in the best way that we know how so that you can learn it, okay? Part of this also is being willing to ask questions. Earlier I said you don't always have to be the one with your hand raised in the classroom, and that still rings true. But you can ask questions through email. You can meet with the professor during office hours. You can meet with the professor directly after class to ask whatever question it is that you have. And sometimes the professor will take that question and pose it to the entire class later on. They might say, a student approached me after class and had this brilliant question. I want to take the time to respond to it in class, because chances are, if you have that question, some of your peers have that same question. All right. So if you ask questions, it helps us professors out, right? It helps us figure out what we need to say, the content that we need to deliver, and the way that we need to deliver it. Finally, now I can't speak for all professors. I can't say that. I certainly hope that it's this way, but I can't speak for everybody. Okay. But generally speaking, most, if not all, of your professors generally want you to succeed. That's what we want ultimately, is your success. We want to see you walk out of this classroom not just with a grade, right? Not just with a passing grade, because for us that's not what it's all about. For you it might be in some classes, but for us it's about how much did that student actually learn? How much growth did I see this semester? I will tell you that in my writing classes, most of the time it's the students who walk out with the C pluses and the B minuses who learn more and make more strides and work harder than the students who get A's. Because some students are it just seems like they're naturally very good writers. And so A lot of times they come into the class and they already kind of get it. Some students come into the classroom and they seriously need help learning how to write. And so I take most pride in those students. Not to say I'm not proud of my students who walk out with A's, and not to say that all of my students who leave class with A's don't improve a lot. Because chances are if you get an A in a writing class, you did improve a lot. But it's those students who go the extra mile because they recognize, hey, like, I have weaknesses. I don't feel like I'm a good writer. I'm worried about this class. Who come to me during my office hours and chat with me, who go the extra mile working on their papers. They bring me drafts before the drafts are due, so on and so forth. Okay? But I genuinely want to see my students succeed. I want to see you learn. Okay? I take pride in that. It means I'm doing my job right. Not that I'm just entering in a grade in the grading system online. It's that I saw the student gain skills and knowledge that are going to help them down the road, whether it's in their college career or in their actual career in their adult life. So there you have it. Those are my 3 keys to success. I truly believe that if you follow them, you cannot fail in the classroom. Sounds silly, 3 keys to encompass an entire college career. That's what it boiled down to for me as a college student when I was reflecting on what I did to actually walk out with my degree as a successful student who earned the grades to earn the degree, but also gain knowledge and skills that are going to help me out in the future. So until next time, until my next video, I wish you all the best of luck in your endeavors. Thanks so much for listening.